The Indiana Fever are going to be going up against Atlanta in a Fever Dream playoff. So let's break those head-to-head matchups down. Plus, I do have some predictions for who might end up in the finals, and I'm even surprised. And Kelsey Mitchell appropriately makes all WNBA first team. So this is the matchup that I wanted. I wanted the Indiana Fever to go up against the Atlanta Dream for a multitude of reasons. I personally see the Aces on this 16-game winning streak, which, by the way, is the longest winning streak in WNBA history, and it's terrifying. Yes, Indiana does lead the series 2-1 games, but that was a Las Vegas Aces that did not get belted by over 50 points by the Minnesota Lynx. The next day after that game, A'ja Wilson came out and said, if you aren't embarrassed by that loss, I don't want you in my locker room. You are not needed and you are not wanted. That absolutely shifted the entire mentality for the Aces. And ever since that absolute beat down, they have been on a tear. I don't know what it was about that, but that is a show of mental strength right there. That's not the only reason I don't want to see the Indiana Fever match up first against the Aces, but the second reason being the Atlanta Dream actually do not have a lot of playoff experience. And like any WNBA player or basketball player in general will tell you, being in the postseason is completely different than being in like the regular season. And this is where experience matters. Just listen to Sophie Cunningham.
Playoff season is just like a whole different season. I know you always hear athletes say that, but like it truly is. So like you could have the best record in the regular season and like literally lose in the first round if that team doesn't have experience. Like experience is what wins playoffs and championships. I don't know what it is, but it's like, you know how to handle the momentum swings. You know how to handle the runs. Like it's hard to explain, but when you're in it, it's freaking real. I would like to play Atlanta. I think we match up best with them. We have Kelsey Mitchell. We have AB. Again, it's playoff experience. And so Atlanta has maybe the least amount of playoff experience, if I'm not mistaken. And I think our team does too, but I think that'd be our best matchup.
Now, drawing the Atlanta Dream is no walk in the park. That coach, Carl Smesko, he has turned the Atlanta Dream from like a lottery team last season, barely making the playoffs, to a top contender this season. They were number 2 for a long stretch. They ended up being number 3. They actually have won and lost as many games as the Aces, but the Aces do have the head-to-head advantage. And these are the things that I think the Indiana Fever should definitely plan for when they do go up against the Atlanta Dream. Number 1, neutralize Rhyne Howard and Alicia Gray because they are perimeter threats. Rhyne Howard is not only a threat on the perimeter, but she is a nasty defender. The thing is, Rhyne Howard is very inconsistent. Like sometimes she'll drop 30 points, sometimes she'll shoot 9 3-pointers in a game, and sometimes she won't even hit double digits in a game. But not only do they have perimeter threats, they have interior protection. Brittany Griner is 6'9". Brianna Jones is on a tear lately. And the last time that they did play the Atlanta Dream, the Indiana Fever did come away with the win, but that was a totally different Indiana Fever team who had Caitlin Clark. Aaliyah Boston, she has had a lot of troubles going up against Brittany Griner, but in that game, she seemed actually to be very dominant. But again, that was playing with Caitlin Clark, because the time before that, which was on June 10th, and the Indiana Fever lost 77-58, a pretty big loss. Aaliyah Boston did only come away with 7 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds. And in that game, Brianna Jones actually came away with 21 points. I think that was around the time that Brittany Griner kind of was in like a bit of a lull. She only came away with 9 points, but Brianna Jones was dominating the glass. She had 10 rebounds. So she kind of gave Aaliyah Boston some problems, but I do not think this is beyond Aaliyah Boston to take on, because Aaliyah Boston, if she puts her mind to it and she taps into that bullying, aggressive nature that she can do, I can see her being dominant in the paint. But again, because the Atlanta Dream do have these 2 bigs under that basket, and they have those perimeter threats in Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard, not to mention Naz Hillman, who might win 6th Woman of the Year. The Indiana Fever, Stephanie White, Brianne January are going to have to plan accordingly because the Atlanta Dream's offensive net rating is number 2 in the league, and their net defensive rating is also at number 2 in the league. Now, offensively, Indiana actually sit at number 3 in the league. So if Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Odyssey Sims, and if Lexi can score and defend in that game and Indiana is on their A game, I can see them taking this home. But Indiana do come in at number 7 in their defensive rating, so they are going to have to lock in. And the difference in this season is that they will play 3 games and each team does get a home game. So I feel like Atlanta will probably win their first home game. Then when it goes back to Indiana, I can see Indiana taking the second game. But if I'm being completely and totally honest, I feel like the Dream might edge out Indiana. If this were a different Indiana Fever team, if they still had Aerie, if Caitlin Clark were able to play, I would definitely predict the opposite. But just by sheer grit and determination, the Fever even being in the playoffs is kind of an accomplishment. They had absolutely no time to gain any sort of rhythm with any sort of inconsistent lineup, as the lineup was constantly changing. So they've basically been swimming upstream all season. Now, I did make predictions for the other playoff games. And because Minnesota belted down the Valkyries last night, the Valkyries get to face Minnesota in the first round of the playoffs because the Valkyries did come in at number 8. In no world do I see the Valkyries beating the Minnesota Lynx, but they are definitely a gritty team that does not give up, and I could possibly see them winning 1 game. But the Lynx are going to take that round. So, because the Seattle Storm did end up as the number 7 seed, they are going to be taking on the Las Vegas Aces, who are at number 2. This momentum that the Aces are on, again, 16-game winning streak, and again, a historic winning streak that no other team has done in the WNBA, I do not see the Storm taking one of these games. I think that they got into the playoffs by like a hair, and they are very inconsistent. They do not shoot well at the 3. And in the last 10 games of the season, the Las Vegas Aces are number 1 in offensive net rating and number 1 in defensive net rating. The Seattle Storm come in at number 4 in defense, and they also come in at number 5 in offense. And I just think that this is one of those outmatched matchups. Now, somehow the New York Liberty, who everyone thought was going to be the finals contender, slipped to number 5 in the standings, and they are going to be playing number 4 Phoenix Mercury in the first round of the playoffs. Alyssa Thomas is the threat on the Mercury. She will have to be who Sandy Brondello plans against, because her playmaking and her ability to score in very difficult situations and her crazy hook shot and her crazy triple doubles is what absolutely makes this Mercury team exceed at such a high level. But the New York Liberty have been playing through a lot of like consecutive big injuries on their roster. First, Jonquel Jones was out, then Breanna Stewart was out for a long time, Sabrina was out, and they just haven't had a full healthy roster. But they do now, and I see a full healthy roster on the New York Liberty taking over the Mercury. And taking a look at their last 10 games, the Phoenix Mercury are actually below the Liberty offensively and defensively, but this is not the New York Liberty that I think all of us thought that they were going to be. Now, here's for a pretty hot take. I feel like the Aces could take it all this season. They have a lot of postseason experience. They are also former champions, so they know what it takes to get there. Asia Wilson and Jackie Young have woken up out of a slumber to absolutely dominate in the league. And there are times where I have been seeing the Minnesota Lynx kind of struggling just a little bit, though they are still very dominant in the league. But in the latter part of the season, they have been struggling a bit, whereas the Aces have been pretty much the opposite. So, Kelsey Mitchell has been named All-WNBA First Team, which I think is so well deserved. If she didn't make All-WNBA First Team, I would kind of have a problem. She has always been one of the league's most electric scorers, averaging a career average of 38% from beyond the arc. And in this season, she upped that just a little to 39%. She also comes in at number 3 in the entire league in points per game. A'ja Wilson and Nafisa Collier are 1 and 2. And as far as guards go, she's number 1. In the absence of superstar and offensive engine Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell has had to step up in a different role because she is honestly just a shooting guard, but without Caitlin Clark, she has honed some playmaking skills, and I don't actually think she gets enough credit for how good some of those passes she makes are, and I also don't think that she gets enough credit for upping her defense. Now, is she the best defender in the league? Would she win any awards for her defense? No way. But again, she has stepped up in ways that are really hard, that don't show up in the stat sheet, and unless you really know the game, like, you don't really notice. She averages over 20 points a game, even surpassing Tamika Catchings, making her the only person on the Indiana Fever to achieve that stat. And I don't know if you remember when the Connecticut Sun were just absolutely whooping the Indiana Fever the last time they faced off, but they were down from, I think, 21 points, and Kelsey Mitchell almost single-handedly after the half rallied to overcome the 21-point deficit to beat the Connecticut Sun 99-93 in overtime. 34 of those points came from Kelsey Mitchell. It's actually the biggest comeback in Indiana Fever history. She did all of this while not missing one game of the 44 games this season and playing heavy minutes. And with all of the bobbing and weaving through a never-ending cycle of adversity, I really think that seeing Kelsey Mitchell do all of this, it just screams all-WNBA, and I'm really glad she got recognized. I don't know if she will return to the Indiana Fever. I'm assuming so because her and Caitlin Clark are a lethal backcourt. They were the best backcourt in the last half of last season. So it would be so nice to see them settle in, develop their stride for next season, and kind of just take over. But if you have any thoughts about who might win against the Fever Dream matchup or who might win the whole enchilada, let me know in the comments.